What if half the things you think you believe in aren't even yours? What if all this time you've been defining your personality and identity based on other people's opinions, expectations, and beliefs? And you've been letting them shape your identity based on their own terms and not yours. I think it's time to take those beliefs back and decide who you are on your own terms. This episode is all about finding the pieces of your identity. That's why I like to call it the identity puzzle. And we're going to zoom out and look at our beliefs as the major part of our identity from a bigger picture. This is Braininess. You are our friendly, brainy listener. Thank you for being here, and bear with me as I'm going to explain what this episode is going to be about. Beliefs are powerful. They're not just another category in life. They shape your fears, your values, your choices, and your very sense of self. So if you don't actually own your beliefs, how can you be sure of who you really are? Because here's the thing, if you don't question your beliefs, you end up letting other people set your limits for you, and you let them define what you can do or can't do. They are the ones who set your limits or tell you what you should do or shouldn't be doing. Some of these beliefs were handed to you by your parents, your culture, or experiences you had no control over. But now it's time to look at them differently. This season of Braininess is meant to be listened to in order because each episode builds on the last. So if you haven't heard episode 1 yet, I'd suggest listening to that first. Because today we are using the foundation from episode 1 to start sorting through the pieces of your identity puzzle. Firstly, we are going to spot your beliefs. Then we are going to question them. And thirdly, we're going to see if they align with our values or not based on the method we learned in the previous episode. So let's begin. I personally see identity as a never-ending puzzle. And why do I think like that? Is that because with every stage of life, you start to see more of the picture. And at the same time, you also start noticing gaps in pieces you thought you had already placed. And that's okay, because this is the point of life. It's normal to be in a new stage of life and look back only to see missing pieces from before. It doesn't mean you failed or you're not enough or you're not doing enough. It just means that the puzzle is still unfolding, and this unfolding may even continue until the very last days of your life, and that's completely okay. Beliefs are some of the most important pieces of this puzzle, and that's why we're dedicating an entire episode to them. So let's start by the first step, which is spotting a belief. I'm going to suggest the simplest way I could think of to spot a belief, which is paying attention to the words you use. Whenever you say things like, I must do this, I should do that, I can't do this, you are actually revealing a belief by using words like must, can't, should, or shouldn't, or something similar to those. So please take a moment to write down whatever pops into your head that uses these words, because words shape beliefs more than we realize. So this is your first step into rebuilding your beliefs. The second step here is to, after spotting your beliefs, you have to start questioning them. And start asking questions like, who told me this? Why do I think like that? Or is this really the only way that this can be done? Or what would happen if I did the opposite? Even simply yes or no answers can reveal a lot here. Unlike the previous episode where I told you please don't ask yes or no questions and start asking questions that need open-ended answers, here all those answers could be revealing. Because when your answers start sounding like this is just how it is, or I've always been told so, or something like I don't know. Maybe the answer to one of those questions is just I don't know. This is actually okay, and this is actually telling you this is a red flag. This belief is not yours, and you need to start getting rid of it or start reshaping it. Yeah. Actually, those answers are our pathway to the third step, which I'd like to call finding the patterns. For example, you might notice your musts all trace back to your parents' expectations, or your shoulds might come from cultural habits, and your can'ts might come from old fears that you never ever challenged. They're just there. So this is where the identity puzzle metaphor really comes to life, because not every belief actually fits. Some pieces have been jammed into your puzzle, and now that you're truly seeing that they don't belong in your puzzle, you can start getting rid of them. To make things clear here, I'd like to narrate a story here, which you might heard before, but I'm going to tell it again. So, scientists once put 5 monkeys in a cage, hung bananas at the top, and placed a ladder underneath. Every time a monkey climbed the ladder, the researchers sprayed all the monkeys with freezing water. So soon the monkeys learned that climbing the ladder equals cold water. So they stopped climbing. Then, one by one, the original monkeys were replaced with new monkeys, and the new monkeys were never sprayed with cold water. But this is where the funny part is. Each time a newcomer tried to climb up the ladder, the others would attack it. Even though they had no clue why they're doing this, they had just learned from the original monkeys that they shouldn't climb the ladder, and they didn't have a clue why. So, do you see the moral of the story here? There are certain beliefs in our lives that we have no clue where they're coming from and why we're just sticking to them so firmly. But as soon as you start questioning them, you see how stupid they are. Or maybe not stupid, maybe they just don't belong in our puzzle. Okay? So that is exactly how so many of our beliefs work here. They get passed down even though no one remembers where they came from. Parents, teachers, friends, culture, or any other source. It doesn't matter. It's just that they're not yours. They have been instilled on you. Okay, now let's move on to the last step, which is building a framework. But there is a truth here that I have to mention. Getting rid of a belief is not so easily done, especially the ones you have held for years. They just don't vanish instantly, even though you have learned that they don't make sense, but you can't get rid of them so instantly. But here's what you can do. Once you have identified and questioned and find the source of a belief, you create a mental framework. Like, think of it like turning on a flashlight. Now, every time that belief shows up in your life, you notice it. You see, oh, okay, this is the belief I questioned. It didn't really make sense, and here it's just playing with my mind. Yeah, you start seeing it. Like, before you didn't see it, but right now you start seeing it. And it might still bother you at first, but with time you'll start reshaping it slowly, and then it becomes yours, or you let go of it forever. It's just up to you what you do with it in the end. And here I'd like to give you a personal story from my own life. I used to think I hated cooking, and here's why. As a kid, I loved experimenting, mixing weird spices or just throwing ingredients together just to see what happens. But every time I tried to do the cooking my own way, my mom would stop me and say, no, this is not how the recipe goes, or this is not how it should be done. So she didn't mean harm. Maybe she probably didn't even know where her belief about the right way to cook came from. But as a kid, I started to believe I hate cooking. The belief stuck for years until I moved out and I had to cook for myself. So suddenly, that little explorer in me woke up again. I cooked with no rules or no recipes, and I realized I've never hated cooking. I just hated being boxed in or being told what to do or how the recipe must go or shouldn't go. Just like that, a belief that shaped my behavior for years, like it was vanished with a blink of an eye. Just I realized, oh, I actually love cooking. So this is what I'm talking about. When you start seeing the root of your beliefs, you see they're coming from some sources that don't make sense at all, or maybe one belief is emerging through the form of another belief. Like in my case, I hated being boxed in, but actually I started to grow the belief that I hated cooking. You know, do you see the connection? Here is the bigger picture. Your identity is not fixed, it's a puzzle, one that constantly is evolving, and every belief you hold is a piece of that puzzle. Some pieces you chose, others were handed to you, and some don't belong at all. They're just sitting there because you never asked where they came from. The more you spot, question, and reshape your beliefs, the clearer your puzzle becomes, and it starts to make sense in your terms, and it starts to look more like you. And sometimes after questioning, you might actually keep a belief, but this time you own it. You haven't just accepted it blindly, but you actually have claimed this belief, and right now it has deeper roots in your identity. You define it on your own terms, and you decide when and how it applies. Okay, I hope this episode gave you something to think about. And thank you for listening. This is Braininess, where we think deep. And I hope you enjoyed this episode. See you in the next one. Take care.